An attempt to save her sister turned into a tragedy. Viola possessed not only a sharp mind but also incredible beauty. Her clear blue eyes and sincere smile were able to win the hearts of others. The girl's parents, successful entrepreneurs, lived in Italy and provided their daughter with everything she needed, allowing her to enjoy complete freedom of choice. Viola was allowed to do absolutely anything she wished, and she lived, enjoying all the delights of a carefree existence. But one day her life changed dramatically when she met and married Mark, a lawyer. This man immediately attracted her attention with his appearance, tall, stately, with a confident posture and expressive eyes. Mark seemed to be the epitome of success and self-confidence. Viola literally lost her head from love for him. He became the center of the universe for her, and the girl was ready to do everything possible to be near him. However, over time, the idyllic picture of their marriage began to give cracks. At first, it manifested itself in small things, small disagreements, slight misunderstandings, but gradually the tension between them grew. What had previously seemed like a perfect union of two loving hearts began to slowly crumble under the pressure of reality. Mark turned out to be far from an ideal husband. He was a frequent drinker, and alcohol only emphasized his violent temper. Mark's tendencies manifested themselves when he became aggressive and sometimes violent. Viola, immersed in her feelings for him, preferred to keep quiet about it. She justified his behavior by saying, "He's having a tough day. He's having problems at work. He's probably just in a bad mood." Viola believed that everything would be all right, that peace always came after the storm. Even when he raised his hand at her, her heart continued to forgive. She looked for the spark of love in his eyes and hoped that tomorrow everything would change. But with each new morning, Viola felt her hope shattered by his cruelty. Viola had a younger sister, Victoria. They had been close since childhood. Victoria looked up to Viola with admiration, for her sister was a true ideal to her. However, with Mark's arrival, everything changed. She noticed the way he treated Viola, and her heart ached when she saw her sister suffer. Victoria repeatedly tried to intervene, urging Viola to tell her parents what was happening. But each time she got the response, "Stay out of it," as if that was the only way to protect her pride and preserve the image of a happy marriage. Viola realized that if she told anyone the truth about Mark, she would probably lose him forever. The thought filled her with dread, for she truly believed that without Mark, her life would be meaningless. She was convinced that if Mark found her sharing her worries with anyone, be it her sister or her parents, it would only make things worse. In the back of her mind, she feared that he might react aggressively or simply walk away, leaving her alone. So Viola preferred to keep her suffering to herself, carefully hiding it from everyone. She tried to convince herself that she could cope on her own, that time and patience would help them overcome their difficulties. For the sake of her family, she was willing to tolerate a lot, even if it meant keeping a low profile and turning a blind eye to the unpleasantness. She clung desperately to the illusion of happiness they were building together, even though that illusion was becoming more fragile by the day. The beginning of the mold. The birth of her son was a source of new hope for Viola. She felt that now she had a goal worth fighting for. All her strength and energy was directed towards creating a happy and safe environment for the baby. She dreamed that she would be able to shield her child from the suffering that she herself had to endure. She believed that by surrounding her son with love and care, she would be able to give him the stability and support that she herself lacked. As time passed, however, instead of improving, the situation only worsened. Mark became increasingly aloof and irritable. His rare appearances at home were no longer joyful, but rather disturbing. His visits became unpredictable. He might come home sober, but more often than not, he returned drunk and out of control. Evenings at bars and clubs became his routine, and Viola was often left alone with the baby, not knowing where her husband was or when he would return. Every time he returned, Viola was reminded of an impending storm that threatened to destroy her fragile and vulnerable happiness. His rare appearances in the house ended in scandals. And despite her efforts to create a peaceful environment for the sake of the child, everything turned against her. Each attack of aggression was like a thunderbolt. Viola didn't know what to expect from him. He was losing control and turning into a completely different person. Victoria, watching what was happening, tried again and again to talk to Viola, but the latter only waved her away. "You don't understand. I need him." One day, Victoria, tired of waiting for a call from her sister, decided to surprise her with an unexpected visit. Over the past year, she had noticed a significant change in Viola's behavior. She had become much more taciturn. Her former cheerful laughter had been replaced by rare, strained smiles, and her gaze had lost its former liveliness and warmth. Victoria sensed that something was wrong. She knew that Mark was cheating on Viola, and she wondered how long it would be before her sister would tell her the truth. Victoria wanted to be there for Viola, to support her in her time of need, and perhaps to encourage her to make an important decision. She realized that Viola had been silent for too long, trying to maintain the appearance of a normal family life, and it was only making things worse. A desire grew inside Victoria to help her sister escape this toxic environment, to show her that she wasn't alone and that there was always a way out, no matter how difficult it seemed. As she walked up the steps to the door, Victoria was already thinking about what she would say to convince her sister to leave her husband. But when she opened the door, she saw a horrible sight. Viola was lying on the floor, badly beaten, her face smashed, and her son's loud crying was echoing in the room. Mark, with an enraged look, continued to abuse his wife, paying no attention to the extraneous sounds. Victoria rushed to her sister, trying to push Mark away and protect her, but the enraged husband, noticing Victoria, turned toward her with hatred. In an instant, he pounced on her, throwing punches. Fearing for her sister's life and her own, Victoria, in a desperate attempt to protect them both, grabbed the first heavy object she could find, a metal vase on the nightstand. Gathering all her strength, Victoria struck Mark. The blow was strong and unexpected. He lost consciousness and collapsed to the floor. Exhausted and shocked by what had just happened, Victoria immediately called an ambulance, hoping she could save him, despite his cruelty to Viola. But it was too late. The medical personnel who arrived on the scene declared Mark dead from his injuries. The situation rapidly began to spiral out of control. The police soon arrested Victoria and charged her with murder. Fear and despair gripped her as she realized she was now on the wrong side of the law. The trial attracted public attention, and even their family's wide connections could not influence the case because the judicial system worked ruthlessly. Everything that was happening was a real disaster for Victoria, and her loving sister Viola was to blame. She could not believe that her favorite sister Viola, with whom they spent a carefree childhood, they were always close to each other, taking care of each other, so easily accused her of murder. After Mark's death, Viola began to say that no one had hurt her, and supposedly Victoria had killed him out of jealousy. It was an incredibly painful situation for Victoria. At the trial, Viola stood with a cold face and asked the court to give Victoria the maximum sentence. Those words cut Victoria's soul, and she couldn't understand how Viola, who was her sister's best friend and support, could do such a thing. Victoria knew the truth. Viola was a victim of years of domestic violence. All those years of Mark raising his hand against her, her son had witnessed his mother's suffering. Victoria worried about Viola, who continued to love a man who disrespected her and who betrayed her trust. Mark lived off their parents, leaving Viola without support or love, but she still looked to him for kindness. In addition, Viola had a deep hatred for her own sister, who she felt had ruined her entire life. It was truly a tragedy. Victoria, who had originally sought to protect her sister, turned out to be the very person against whom Viola now felt the strongest negative emotions. The trial ended in a verdict: 3 years in prison. That was the price paid for trying to protect a loved one. Despite all the pain and betrayal that had fallen on Victoria, she felt no anger toward her sister. Her love for Viola still lived in her heart, and she looked forward to the day when they could see each other again. Victoria firmly believed that one day their relationship would be restored, that they would find a way to overcome the obstacles and return to the closeness that had bound them together since childhood. She dreamed of how they would be able to spend time together again, remembering happy moments of the past, sharing news and plans for the future. Victoria imagined how they would laugh, discuss important issues, and just support each other as they had always done. Despite the harshness of the circumstances, she kept her faith in the best and never gave up hope that their bond would withstand any trials. Victoria's love for her sister was stronger than any hurt, and she knew that wounds healed faster when those who were truly dear to her were around. She was sure that together they would be able to cope with any difficulties and rebuild the trust they had lost.
I got revenge on the company that fired me. Hi, my name is Bill. My company did not treat me fairly, and I want to ask you, what would you do in my shoes? I have been part of the team literally from the beginning when we were just starting to hit the market. It was a time when we didn't have huge offices with panoramic windows, expensive company cars, and endless meetings where we discussed things that nobody really needed. On the contrary, we were a small group of like-minded people, united by one idea and ready to invest every minute of our time to turn it into something more. I remember how we huddled in a small room that served as an office, a conference room, and even a dining room. Sometimes we had to work almost around the clock because the tasks required immediate solutions and there were few resources. We lived this project, breathed it, thought about it day and night. Arguments, discussions, brainstorming sessions. All this happened right on the spot, amidst the chaos of papers, drawings, and notebooks. Each of us realized how important our shared success was and tried to do our part. We were not afraid of challenges, because we knew that together we could overcome any obstacle. It was then, in those first months and years, that the foundation for our future success was laid. We were literally building the company with our own hands, doing everything we could to be recognized in the market. As time passed, our efforts began to bear fruit. Our customer base grew, our revenues increased, and soon we could afford to move to a larger office. The cars got better, the working conditions more comfortable. However, despite all the changes, I continued to feel part of the same original team that had started the company. We had been through a lot together, and that spirit of unity remained unchanged. Back then, I truly believed that what we were doing together was not just business, but something much bigger. That we were creating something meaningful that would leave a mark on the industry. And maybe that's why what happened next was so unexpected and painful. When things went up, I really thought everything was going to be fine. We became a large company, we started to actively enter the international market. Our products were in great demand. Success seemed inevitable, and it seemed that nothing could stop it. The money was flowing, the plans for the future looked brilliant, and, to be honest, I couldn't imagine what could go wrong. Every morning I came to work with a sense of satisfaction, seeing our efforts bear fruit. We were expanding, opening new branches, signing major contracts. What more could you ask for? Work was a joy. Colleagues became a real team, and every day was filled with new challenges and opportunities. But one morning everything changed. I was unexpectedly summoned to the director's office. Usually such meetings were held in a friendly atmosphere, discussing current projects and plans for the future. But this time the atmosphere was different, tense and cold. The director sat at his desk, looking somewhere far away, as if avoiding my gaze. He was silent for a long time, and then he said a phrase that I remembered forever. "Things have changed. Bill, it's time for you to look for a new job. You've got a week." Those words came out of the blue. I froze, unable to believe what I was hearing. No explanation, no apology, just dry and unemotional. In his hands, he held an envelope with the dismissal papers. Silently, he held it out to me, avoiding eye contact. I took the envelope, feeling the world around me crumble. Inside it were papers confirming the end of my career at this company, but not a single word explaining the reasons for the decision. It was like a blow under the breath. 10 years of work, thousands of hours spent working for the company, and just like that, in an instant, it was over. I walked out of the office without saying a word, holding that unfortunate envelope in my hand. My head was spinning with bewilderment and anger. Why? What could be the reasons for such an act? These questions swirled in my head, giving me no rest. I was walking home, and every minute of the way seemed like an eternity. The world around me lost its colors. Everything seemed meaningless. How could they do this to me after everything I had done for this company? This question did not give me peace, forcing me to relive every moment of that meeting. I went home in a state of complete shock. 10 years of my life, and just like that, in one fell swoop, it was over. The ground seemed to have gone out from under my feet, and I didn't know how to go on living. My wife tried to console me, saying that everything would get better, that I should take a break and rest a little. My friends called, offered to meet, to distract me, but inside I was boiling with anger. The days dragged on slowly, like a viscous swamp. I kept going to work, but my thoughts kept coming back to the situation, to the people I had spent so much time with. Every night I fell asleep with a heavy heart and woke up with a feeling of emptiness. Everything I had invested my energy and strength in disappeared overnight, leaving only a bitter residue. A few days later, I received information that finally knocked the ground out from under my feet. It turned out that my dismissal was part of an overall cost-cutting plan. The company supposedly wanted to save money, even though they were actually doing great. What's more, they kept hiring new employees, expanding their staff. This news was the last straw. How is this even possible? Why save money on people who have been putting their heart and soul into a common cause for years? Why did they choose me, the person who stood at the origins of the company, helped it to grow and develop? The questions were swarming in my head, giving me no rest. I felt deceived, betrayed, abandoned to my fate. I decided I had to get revenge. Not right away, of course. At first, I just wanted to forget about it all, to start a new life. But the more I thought about the injustice, the stronger my resolve became. And so I began to devise a plan. The first thing I did was to contact my colleagues who had been informed of my imminent dismissal. Many of them were also unhappy with what was happening at the company, especially those who, like me, had worked there for a long time. We met, discussed the situation, and realized that we couldn't just leave it like that. We had to act. We started gathering information, analyzing weaknesses, looking for ways to do maximum damage. It wasn't easy, because we had to be careful not to attract attention. But the desire for revenge was so strong that we were willing to take the risk. We held several meetings, discussing possible courses of action. Some suggested sabotaging current projects. Others suggested leaking confidential information to competitors. There were many options, and each of us contributed our part. It was important not to rush, to think everything through to minimize the risks. In the end, we drew up a detailed plan. Some of us started collecting documents, some of us started spreading rumors inside the company, and some of us prepared the data leak. We acted together as a team, protecting ourselves and other colleagues who were in the same situation, and that gave us confidence. Having gathered enough information, we started to execute our plan. At first in small steps to test the reaction of the management. Then we moved on to more serious measures. We knew we were taking a risk, but our sense of fairness and desire to restore balance outweighed our fear. First, we started sabotaging ongoing projects. Small mistakes here, flaws there, nothing critical, but enough to slow down the work. For example, someone deliberately sent incorrect data to clients. Someone delayed the deadlines of tasks, creating the appearance of a flurry of activity, but actually doing nothing. We tried to act discreetly so as not to attract attention, but at the same time to cause tangible damage. Then we got more serious. We started leaking information to competitors. Some of us gave them data about new products. Some of us told them about the company's strategic plans. We shared production secrets. We gave commercial proposals that were supposed to remain strictly confidential. All this time, I was closely following the news about the company and saw how it was beginning to lose ground in the market. The competitors, having obtained valuable information, used it against us. They were stealing contracts, bringing similar products to market faster than we were able to finalize our own. It was a real blow to the company's reputation. Customers began to doubt the reliability of our cooperation, and partners considered ending the relationship. All the while, we continued to operate covertly. We knew that management was trying to find out who was behind these problems, but our security measures allowed us to remain undetected. We carefully hid traces of our activities, erased files, encrypted correspondence. Each of us realized that if we were caught, the consequences would be serious, but the desire for revenge was stronger than fear. Over time, the results of our work became visible to the naked eye. The company's sales began to fall. Its reputation began to deteriorate. Management was scrambling for solutions, conducting internal investigations, but all in vain. We were too cautious, and all trails led nowhere. A few months passed, and the company started losing customers. Sales dropped, reputation suffered. Management panicked, and mass layoffs began. People who had been valued before were now on the street. And I watched it all with a smile, knowing that our revenge had paid off. But the best part came later. The competitors we were helping offered me a job. Turns out they appreciated my knowledge and experience. Now I work for the same industry, but in a different company. And you know what? I love it. They treat me with respect, pay me a decent salary, and value my contribution. My new job has been a real eye-opener. Colleagues are friendly and willing to help in any situation. The managers listen to my opinion and take my suggestions into account. I feel like an important part of the team, and this gives me strength and motivation. Every day I come to work with pleasure, knowing that I am doing something useful and necessary. In addition, I see my former company continuing to lose ground. News about it is less and less positive, and employees continue to leave. This gives me satisfaction because I know I played a part in that. Of course, there are times when I think back to the old days when we were just starting out, when everything was new and exciting. But the past remains the past, and there is no point in going back there. Now I have the opportunity to build my future the way I want. My new job gives me confidence in the future, and the respect of my colleagues and recognition of my merits make every working day pleasant and productive. Sometimes I meet former coworkers, and they are surprised at how quickly I found a new job and how well I adapted to the new environment. I smile and say it all worked itself out. But inside I know it's the result of a lot of thought, planning, and courageous decisions. Life goes on, and it's important to be able to adapt to change by learning from past experiences. Now I look forward to the future with optimism. I am sure that new challenges and opportunities are ahead of me. The main thing is not to be afraid to take risks and believe in yourself. After all, as my example shows, even the most difficult situations can be turned in your favor. Sometimes, however, I wonder if it was worth it. Revenge is always a risk, and I realize that I could have lost a lot. But honestly, I don't regret anything. They created this situation, and I just took the opportunity. Now I have a new life, new perspectives, and I am glad that I was able to come out of this story a winner.